Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday morning.
Yes, it is a snowstorm morning.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Engen.
I'm Kwon. Of course, before we get started here, don't forget you can always watch this, listen to this on your own time by visiting our InForum YouTube channel. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform, and you can find us on inforum.com/podcast under the InForum Minute as well. Before we get into some of our headlines or major headlines, of course, the big talker today is weather, and Dillon was really just taking one for the team today. You were out in the elements. You got a nice little shower outside today.
Got a shower already. Call it a shower if it's below freezing. It was not very nice.
Shower turned into going into like the freezer or something.
I guess.
Yeah,
sure.
right?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
what we can put it at.
Yeah, tell us about it because, man, that's what everyone's wondering.
So when I came into work, a couple spots were wet, but there really wasn't much freezing happening. And then quickly throughout the morning on First News, it was raining for like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes during the show. And temperatures were dropping. And although the roadways, so not all roads, maybe your sidewalks, something, they might not be slippery. But that does not mean everything is not slippery. That's because the ground is not at the air temperature. For example, our air temperature outside is about 30 degrees. Ground temperature a little bit warmer because we just came out of summer months. The ground is not quite frozen yet. So you probably have some ground temperatures that are 33, 34 degrees. However, you see trees, you see rocks, you see bridges. That's where the air surrounds those objects, and when the air surrounds it, it cools it much faster, and that's why all of those items are frozen. Trees, I shook a couple trees on First News this morning.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And
sounded like chips.
Exactly, yes, yes. And that's all because the air surrounds that tree, cools it off quicker, and when the rain falls from the sky, it freezes on contact. So that's a lot what's going on right now. You may just, like I said, drive around. It's not too slippery, but there are a lot of spots getting slippery, and temperatures are falling below more.
Yeah, right now.
Below freezing, and as they continue to fall, everything's going to cool off, and eventually all those wet roadways will turn into icy roadways as it transitions into snow later on today.
Well, you know what? And you talked about how different it was this morning. Scott and I, actually, when we got in today, we were like, oh, I don't think it's that bad out right now because we came in way early this morning. We were slamming on our brakes to see if those were, you know, icy roads yet. It wasn't then, but it is you know? So something to be very, very careful about this morning.
Yeah, especially when those roads get covered with the snow.
Yes. When they get covered with the snow, those roadways are cold enough for that ice underneath the freeze. So that's where things get ugly. I saw a ton of plows. I was out at the interchange of I-29, I-94 in Fargo this morning, and plows always going, you know, behind me. But once temperatures and the roadways get below that freezing mark.
Yeah, and that comes with a warning too. Dillon did mention the bridges part and how the air surrounds it. That's a really good point. Anything that's more elevated, like a bridge or like an off-ramp or something, they have two sides that can be cooled, right? So those are going to be a lot more icy, a lot more quicker.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really, really great reminder for drivers today.
Yeah.
All right,
Let's talk about some of the road conditions because we've been looking at that all morning long. I-29, this is the big story from Fargo up to Grand Forks. That's closed down right now, and you know, we're hearing reports of several accidents on that stretch of road, which is probably leading to why it's closed. You know, the combination of the ice causing those accidents. It's a really big mess right now. So I-29, Fargo to Grand Forks, closed.
And Lydia also said, you know, she's seeing a lot of comments saying, what do you mean there's no snow on the ground? Again, this goes off of what Scott just said, what Dillon is saying. You know, a lot of this rain is basically freezing as it makes contact with the road, or, you know, it's freezing rain that's falling. So don't underestimate that because, you know, that's not something you want to do. That's how accidents happen, right? Okay, so with that, of course, we do want to touch a little bit on the road conditions in North Dakota and Minnesota. Looking very similar, but starting in North Dakota, when we got to look at that this morning as of around 6:50-ish, we saw that a lot of the roads were indicating, you know, ice-covered roads, right? So again, this is what we're talking about. Or at least partially covered. But keep in mind, like Dillon just said, temperatures are falling throughout the day. So it's very possible that those partially covered roads could very soon quickly turn into completely covered, you know, icy roads. Kind of the same picture in Minnesota, although not as bad. In our viewing area in Minnesota, at least, we do know you know, we're seeing a lot of the same stuff, but, you know, towards the Twin Cities area, it seems like as of right now with the DOT map, when you head towards DL area, it should start getting better and better. Of course, not necessarily the case throughout the weekend or whatever it is.
Well, because that system is moving you know, that way. It's coming from the west, moving to the east. And so as the day goes on, and tomorrow, you know, we can probably expect some of those roads to get much worse.
Yeah, so if you don't need to travel today or tomorrow by any means, just don't. Just don't. Yeah, and why would you want to, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about one other thing that comes with all that ice. That's those power outages.
Oh, yes.
We haven't seen like a ton of widespread necessarily, but we have been seeing some of those reports come in. Specifically in, I believe, southwest Cass County,
Correct.
there was about 100 customers this morning just around 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock with no power.
Yeah.
So, that's something we're monitoring at this hour. So if you want to know what your current situation is, you can look up your local provider's website. They usually have outage maps and they can show you what's going on with that.
Yeah, it looks like at last check with Cass County Electric, it was around 116 power outages. That could be up by now. It was going up during our show, but we'll see how fast those crews can get out there.
Keep in mind, those crews have to drive on the same roads
Right,
everyone else
exactly.
does. So if it's icy out there, it takes them longer to get to those locations.
Right.
So you got to be patient.
Yeah, exactly. You want the safety for them, of course. Okay, really quick, let's talk about an overnight fire in South Fargo. We know that firefighters responded to a house fire there at a mobile home, actually, at around 12:30 this morning on San Juan Drive, just north of West Acres. We did speak with a battalion chief on scene who tells us it actually started in the kitchen of the home. They were able to get that out very, very quickly, and they also tell us that no one was hurt from this fire. Damage estimate is looking at around $50,000 this morning.
All right, we're tracking an update on that proposed senior living facility in Detroit Lakes. The city council voted to deny a petition for rezoning and a conditional use permit by Eventide for that proposed 119-unit senior living community. Now, obviously, this is something we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is kind of what the people that live there on East Shore Drive said where that building would have been going up. They had concerns over that zoning change from residential to commercial, specifically because of increased traffic that would come with it in the area. And so now we've learned that a debrief on that failed proposal will be happening in the coming weeks with Eventide's board of directors. So, we'll follow what comes out of that meeting as well.
Definitely. Also today, a very special Grand Forks County Commission meeting that would have kind of formed these new discussions surrounding the Fufeng corn milling plant. That meeting is no longer happening. It was scheduled for 8 this morning. It should be going on right now, but it actually is being rescheduled because of these weather conditions. Go figure, right? So commissioners were supposed to discuss some concerns about this plant, get some more public input on this as well. But we are still trying to figure out when that new meeting will be. We heard from the Grand Forks County Auditor, who was not able to confirm a new date for us yet. So stick around. We'll make sure we get that update for you guys.
So up in Grand Forks, there's going to be a county commission meeting. You talked about that, but also there's going to be a couple recounts, it sounds like.
That's right.
A measure to adopt a home rule charter was just barely passed with only a 20-point margin. And then that half-cent sales tax that was on the ballot as well, that failed by 21 votes. So very close races for both of those. Now, since that was within that 0.5 margin of the separation of the votes, that's going to go to a recount, and that's expected to happen later this month.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, talking more on a national level of things, but kind of staying in North Dakota. We talked about voter turnout yesterday all morning long on First News, and we saw really, really high voter turnout, we thought, right, in Cass and Grand Forks counties with the Alaris Center being packed, Fargo Dome being packed, but we are actually learning as a state, North Dakota probably saw the worst turnout in years, in fact, 10 years, which was pretty crazy. So it seems like there were 500, at least more than 500,000 eligible voters in North Dakota, but only 43% of North Dakotans total actually went out to the ballots, or went out to the polls and cast their ballots. So again, guys, this is the state's lowest turnout in the last decade when it comes to a midterm election. The other time being in 2006, where close to 45% of North Dakotans voted. So I thought that was kind of an interesting tidbit.
Yeah. Throughout this whole election cycle, we've been talking a lot about, the economy, inflation. That was a big factor throughout the country when people were voting. Now, this is something on the national level that could continue to impact that. It's a threat of a railroad strike. So those employees that work on the railways, they're threatening to strike. The third largest railroad union in the U.S. has been prepared to strike. They were actually prepared to do this next Sunday. Now we're learning that shutdown could be probably moved into early December, depending on kind of how talks with the employers go and the union. So we're going to continue to monitor that. But as of now, we're thinking early December is when something like that could happen. And if that does happen, it's going to really impact the supply chain, which is already hurting. About 30% of the freight in the U.S. is shipped through trains.
Wow. Well, and then you think about, like gosh, what do I call it? The airline shortages too, where, Delta and United and all of them are waiting until after Thanksgiving to talk about negotiations and things like that again. So is that going to impact things? That's a really good question to be thinking about as we head into the next month.
Yeah, the holiday season too, on top of that.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah. All right. Right now, we know Hurricane Nicole did make landfall overnight on the east coast of Florida. It did make landfall as a Category 1 hurricane with winds of about 75 miles per hour. It did break the previous 1935 record, making it the latest calendar year hurricane to make landfall on the east coast of Florida. It is expected to weaken. It actually has, I believe, already weakened. So, yeah, we'll keep you guys updated on that on First News tomorrow morning as well.
It's not expected to do nearly this type of damage that Ian did, which is good news.
Yeah, and they're still dealing with the effects of that too.
Big time. So also in Florida, this is not related to weather, but
this is so crazy.
This is a weird story.
Yes,
we talked about it this morning. A gun was found inside of a raw chicken at the airport in Fort Lauderdale. That is crazy.
We were talking about the fact that why would you even bring a raw chicken through TSA anyway?
Because the raw chicken is not going to get through anyway. So let's stuff a gun in a raw chicken to try to sneak it onto a plane.
Like two ends just don't meet, right?
No, not at all. That is crazy. Now, the interesting part of the tidbit to that is that the agency, TSA, that being, says they've recorded 700 guns that have been discovered at Florida airports during check-ins this year, which is kind of scary. And
it seems like one of them was stuffed in a raw chicken, which is just very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. With it starting to be breaking down when you can watch, how you can watch, all of that.
Yeah.
So make sure you come join Dom's show, Hot Mic, 9 to 11, WDAY Extra, InForum.com. He'll get you all ready and prepped for the Dakota Bowl.
Speaking of InForum.com, right now we have a great special going on. It's something you're going to want to take advantage of. So for 99 cents for your first 3 months, you can get that all-access pass to InForum.com. You can get all sorts of different content. We don't know how long the deal is going to last, so take advantage of it now, folks.
And all you have to do is go to InForum.com/subscribe to get that deal.
Cool.
All right, everybody. Of course, we're going to get you guys covered. We know that the winter storm is a big talker right now. We want to get you guys prepared as much as we can. So, of course, you can tune into our 11 o'clock newscast with Becky Parker and Dillon Vogt. And then we got you covered during tonight's news as well, starting at 4, going to 5, 6, 9, and 10. We will be back here tomorrow morning from 5 to 7. Yeah. So hope you can join us and stay safe out there. Yes. Do not travel if you don't need to because it's just not worth it.
Have a great day, folks.
Bye.